Hi, welcome back to Comicbook Gallery. I'm your host, Joaquin. Today I'm continuing a series that's going to be entitled X Men Run. So this is 170 through 179. So the first cover I have up is X Men 170. And as you can see, Storm and Callisto are fighting for who will rule the Morlocks. Um, Callisto still has Angel. Sorry, let's do a close up look at this. I'm kind of filming it this way for this series right here so I can make sure that you get to see everything. And if I want to open up a book, that would make it much more easier to see that you're able to see what I want you to see. Yeah, I'll say that 2 times, 3 times real fast. So, X Men 170. Storm has challenged Callisto to a fight, and Mystique has used his power, and he plays with Storm's face, and it just gets out of hand. Like they're losing. The X Men are losing this confrontation with the Morlocks, and until Storm figures out a way to challenge her. And so I want to say there's I can't think of the mutant's name offhand, but he can damp people's powers. So if he's next to you, they don't work. So if you're a mutant, his powers is you lose your powers. So she calls him over, Leech, how appropriate. So she calls Leech over and they fight. And Storm manages to win by stabbing Callisto in the heart, but she doesn't die because they have a healer. Um, at one point, Kitty Pryde had promised to marry Caliban if she would help him. And later on, Caliban dismisses that promise because he feels that if she doesn't want to be here of free will, then she doesn't have to stay there. So the X-Men are able to walk away with everybody. And now Storm is in charge, is the leader of the Morlocks, unofficial leader. She leaves Callisto there as a secondary leader. But that's how that issue ends. I thought it was an interesting, nice little true story introducing the Morlocks and who they are. And you're going to find out in 200, 210 is when they start introducing the mutant massacre, so they will play an important role down the road. But for now, they just introduced them. I thought it was a nice 2-part series with 169 and 170, and really great covers on both of them. So, oops, out of order. Oops. Okay. So, X-Men 171, Rogue. Welcome to the X-Men, Rogue. Hope you survived the experience. As we know, Rogue was a stepdaughter of Mystique, who she adopted, not formally, but somewhat. And she was having problems controlling her power. So she agreed to have Charles Xavier teach her to maybe she'll learn to control her powers. Let's see if you can still see that. Oh, yeah, there's not a glare. All right, cool. And so she comes in, and there's issues. There's issues with her being there, and also Cyclops and Madeline Pride. They're in Alaska, I believe. They're somewhere. I just can't remember where they're at. And Xavier's trying to deal with. He's still dealing with the fact that he can walk again. So he has a couple of problems with that. And Rogue is still dealing with the fact that she has Carol Danvers' memories and personality in her. And, sorry, just got a little lost in thought here. So the whole purpose of Rogue being there, and Professor Xavier agrees, is for her to control her powers and the wrap up is the team doesn't like it. That's pretty much this episode. I I gotta say, as they run as a whole, the reason why I'm showing you these books is I'm hoping that at least one or two of these books will catch your interest where you would want to go back and read, maybe the X Men during this Chris Claremont run, or maybe the Avengers, but to go back and just start collecting little, 10 issue runs and enjoying comic books for what they are as a nice collection of short stories. So here's 172, and X, let me get it close up so you can see this part right here. So Wolverine's about to get married, and he to Mariko, and he leaves a note to Elf, his elf. He calls Nightcrawler Elf. He's like, "Hey, Elf, don't forget the beer, RSVP." It's got the W for Wolverine. I remember when I first saw this cover, I thought it was a cool cover. And you just knew with a knife through it, it was like, oh, he's not going to get married or something's going to happen. Like at first I thought they were going to kill her off. Like Sabretooth was going to come in and kill her. But no, it has to deal with while they're in Japan, while Wolverine's in Japan, he and the Silver Samurai have some issues. And at the end of this issue, Mariko says that because of her family honor and that she must be the one who's head of the clan, the Ishida clan, that she can't marry Wolverine, so he leaves, and everybody's sad. Meanwhile, Cyclops, we're back in Alaska. I want to say they're in Alaska. He's starting to do a little research and finding out who Madeline Pryor is because she looks so much like Jean that he's concerned that she might be some kind of reincarnation, but he doesn't know. So he's starting to have his doubts on who she is. And it turns out she is a clone, but we just don't know that yet. That's not talked about till later on down. So next up is 173. I'm going to say what I like about this cover to start with. Wolverine and Rogue are tracking down some Yakuza. And what I want to make a quick comment is about Wolverine's claws. Even though I like them, they look cool. But in theory, its claws should only be this long, up to maybe right about here. Because remember, Wolverine's claws are adamantium now. They're no longer bone, so it's not like he can grow them out as long as he wants. So in theory, or not even theory, just in science here, he can only have them the length of its forearm, because I'll show you the example. He can't have them like right here. They would have to stop right here, because otherwise he'd have claws constantly cutting him when he's doing stuff. So from here to, from this to here is the length. When you take that length, right, when he pops his claws, he shouldn't be able to bend his wrists that much anymore because they're popping out right about here. Yeah, it's a little fun Wolverine fact that, you kind of start nitpicking sometimes when you're bored. So when he pops his claws, he might be able to still bend it a little bit, but it shouldn't be that much of a bend. But the claws shouldn't be that long. They should, in theory, should only pop out to right about here, maybe a foot or so, if that. But they always draw them longer. And I do like that style. I just thought I'd point that out to fill up some time. No, but it's interesting to me about Wolverine's claws and how different artists have drawn them really thin or thicker. So Wolverine and Rogue, he's kind of like testing Rogue out to see if she's worthy enough to be an X-Men. So he's kind of like feeling her out. So he takes her with him to take on the Yakuza, and he gets into it with Viper. And at one point, Mastermind is there at the wedding reception. And they also deal with Cyclops and his girlfriend Madeline Pryor, they're there, so the X-Men are shocked. So they see her and they're like, who's she and why does she look so much like Jean? Oh. And at this point, I'm sorry, I had to jump ahead. At this point, this is where she calls it off. This is a two-part series because Mastermind is there, who is influencing her to break off the wedding. Because that's how Mastermind rules. Sorry about that. I have my little notes and I had skipped over that part. So next up, check one more time on the look. And apparently they're both squinting. Or maybe this person's just not that good with eyes and just said, hey, I don't need to draw them. So we have X-Men 174. At this point, Benery joined Starjammers, and Cyclops is trying to really just try to figure out what's going on here. Like, you know, who is she? Is she Jean? And at one point, Scott almost takes off his glasses to show her that she's Jean. And if he would have done that, he would have killed her. Meanwhile, Kitty and Colossus, Kitty Pryor learns a new trick with her phasing, so she shows him that. And both of them share a kiss in Japan, so they're in Japan. And Wolverine is still talking to Mariko about why she called off the wedding. And at the end, he hands back to her this clan sword that she had given to him. And so that's how that ends. So the first 4 books here, you know, we start off with Japan. We start off with, you know, the conclusion of Calistro. Rogue joins the team. You have the wedding conclude in the aftermath. And now we jump into a new story. So issue 175. I always did like this cover too. I just feel like there's a lot going on, but in a good way. So it's a lot to take in. So I just want to make sure that you see this without any glare. The X-Men are dealing with that. They think that Madeline Pride is a phoenix and she's come back, and Mastermind is really the one who's behind this, and he's using this as an opportunity to attack the X-Men where they believe that they're battling Dark Phoenix. And at one point towards the end, they realize that Mastermind's in the room and Storm deals with him. So Scott, this is kind of like he comes to the conclusion that Jean Grey is really dead. So he finally, he goes to Jean Grey's grave and says goodbye. And he finally celebrates his wedding to Madeline because he had proposed to her, and part of him believes that this is really Jean Grey reincarnated again. So I think that's why he proposed to her, and they're going to have these type of issues later on down the road. But for right now, this is what this story was about. And I don't want to tell everything that's in the book. I'm just trying to give you little highlights or a little synopsis of it brief, because there's a lot of details in between on these books that I don't want to share, because I would really like you to read these books. If you're an X-Men fan and you've been collecting all the new stuff, come back to these older issues here, because they have some great stories and good artwork, unlike some of the stuff that you've seen lately. So issue 176, Scott and Madeline's plane crash somewhere in the Pacific, and Wolverine uncovers a plot to see that Mariko's undermining her clan honor. Sure, I get that right there so you can see the glare. Um, Even though Mariko is no longer being influenced by Mastermind, she still rejects him, and she now considers it her duty to be the head of the clan, and that Wolverine really belongs with the X Men. So Wolverine accepts her decision, and at one point they have Henry Gyrich makes an appearance, and they're always discussing the growing threat of mutants. They're always doing that. So every now and then, an episode, they'll drop in that they're going to do something, and then 6 months, 6 months from now, or episode or issue later, they do something. So they drop that little Easter egg. Also, during this issue, Callisto, Sunder, and Mystique learned that how Kitty Pryde betrayed Caliban and promised they forced her to make good on her promise to him. So this is Callisto's way of getting back at Storm. Like, Kitty Pryde should really be married to Caliban because she made that promise and now she's going back on it. So that's her way of getting back at Storm. I almost didn't want to include that fact because if you were to read this, that would have been, your little Easter egg that you would have known. And this, on some of these books, it's just nice to read a book and to discover these little things for yourself. 177. Look at that. For all you people who are smoking, stop. We put that on the book. So I paid $3 for these. Most of these books I either bought for like $1 or $2 or at the price that you currently see. 177 is dealing with the Morlocks kidnapping Kitty Pryde and leaving a replacement there. And that's why you see Wolverine standing over Kitty Pryde, because he stabs her. No, I'm just joking. But that's what this issue is dealing with about. There's a little bit more that goes into it, but I'm trying to keep these videos when I'm doing these type of series to like 20, 25 minutes. So I'm trying to wrap this one up. And I don't want to give everything away. This was a good read. These two stories right here. This whole collection that I'm doing, the runs, they're all great reads. I know I'm going to keep stressing that, but they are. And if you're looking to read some X-Men books that are affordable to collect as far as runs go, this is it. Now, you can always get graphic novels, but I'm talking about if you're trying to build a collection that's going to hold some value, because these books are currently selling anywhere between 3 and 5 a piece on eBay, up to 6 or 7 with shipping. But you can find runs of these blocks, especially 60s, 70s, 80s, and up to 90s, for anywhere between $25 and $35 with shipping. But these books are going to go up because they're Bronze Aged. And X-Men will always be popular along with now the Avengers, because the Avengers until the movies came out were not that popular as far as what people read and what people wanted to read. I'm not saying that the Avengers were not popular. I'm just saying that X-Men, were like the flagship for Marvel for a while. And because of their character development, you could see why. And what the Avengers was cool is because they constantly had members floating in and out. And that happens with the X-Men too, but they usually have nice runs of a group together. So right now, this current group is Storm, Cyclops, who's gone right now, Shadowcat, Wolverine, sorry, excuse me, a little tired, Rogue, Colossus, and Nightcrawler. And that band stays together for a while. All right, next up is 178. So as you can see, this is $2. And I want to say this is the first appearance of Freedom Force. Let me look this up for a second. Nope, that ain't it. Okay, that's so. My bad. So the X-Men are being attacked by the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. I don't even think they're Freedom Force yet. I think that's the next one. Sorry about that. Get lost in thought. You have a lot of information that you start occurring after a while, after reading all these books, and some of your facts get jumbled up every now and then. So Colossus is frozen in nitrogen, and Kitty Pryde contacts Professor, informing him that the Brotherhood is attacking the X-Men. He sends Storms and Wolverine to help, but refrains from telling Rogue because he doesn't want Rogue to feel like she's questioning her loyalty towards Mystique. The FF aren't home. She then sneaks into the building and grabs the device to borrow it. Meanwhile, you have Professor's like scanning, and he's trying to figure, he's monitoring the fight, and she realizes that at one point Mystique has taken over the identity of Professor X. So this whole fight between the Brotherhood and the X-Men is a diversion because she's taken over Professor Xavier's identity, and she tries to get Rogue to come back. And Rogue lets her know that she doesn't have control over her powers, and that she wants to stay. And so that's how it leaves. The Brotherhood leaves. The X-Men are just trying to figure out what to do with Colossus. And sorry, it's been a long day. And that's what's pretty much going on with this issue. There's a couple other little things. And like I said, I don't want to give out everything, even though I've given out the majority of the book. I should have left out the whole Mystique thing, but I thought it was important to the story. And now we come to what they were building up on. The marriage between Caliban and Kitty Pryde. When I first saw this cover, I thought it was so cool. I'll bring this up. And I paid $3 for this. Sorry, just got lost. I was just admiring the artwork on here. When I first saw this book, I just remember I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is actually going to happen. How long are they going to keep this up for? So at one point, Kitty Pryde is all ready to marry Caliban. The X-Men bust in, but the Morlocks remind the X-Men that she made the promise to Caliban, and she didn't keep it. So by Morlock rules or laws, that this is going to happen. And Rogue ends up managing to save Colossus, because remember he's frozen in nitrogen, and he absorbs the power. So he turns to flesh, and then the Morlock healer fixes him. At this point, Rogue, even though she's slowly starting to earn the trust of the X-Men, this is where she earns like Wolverine's respect and some of the others. Kitty Pryde agrees to go with Caliban. She's like, you know what? I'll make a life of this. It's not the life I wanted, but I did this to save the X-Men. So I'll make that sacrifice. Caliban, who is an interesting character in the sense of he has a power is to track down mutants. He can do that. And later on, he becomes a horseman of apocalypse. I want to say he becomes a new war, and they make him really powerful. That's another story. I don't want to get into that, but that's a little spoiler. Maybe I'll talk about Caliban someday. Because out of all the Morlocks, I've always been interested in Caliban and what they've been able to do with him. Along with Calistro, every now and then they do an interesting story with her. So we all know that leading up to this, that he's going to let her go of her promise because he just knew that she would be miserable down there. And that's what I said at the very beginning of this other issue. When I was talking about it, I just jumped ahead on a couple of my notes. So I kind of skimmed through some of this stuff just to get a loose refresher course. But that'll do it, people. If you're new to the channel, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Like I said, I'm really tired. I'm getting ready to call it a day. And if you like what you see, hit the like button. And if you're interested in reading Uncanny X Men, put down what runs that you would like that you've collected and what you've enjoyed about reading them. And if it's not the X Men, then what runs are you collecting and why? So I'm going to leave it at that. And I hope you people have a good day. Take care.